Hey, and welcome back. So, as we continue our series on user research, now that we know what user research is, it's time to find actual users to talk to, right? There's no research done without actually talking to users. So, if you work for a company that has a product team and you're going down that path where you're doing this project on behalf of your own company, you may have access to users of your own company's products, and that's fine. But I would imagine a good number of you are working on a product that doesn't belong to the company that you work for currently, right? And if you're in that boat, it can be a little challenging to find users, but it's not impossible, and there's definitely some shortcuts to getting there, right? If it's a product that you use every day, like an iPhone or an Android app, you may know friends who use the app or have a larger pool of people. So a lot of times consumer apps are pretty easy to track down users for because there's so many of them for the good ones. Business to business users of B2B products are a little more tricky to track down, but not impossible, right? So what I'm about to share with you applies to whatever product, whether it's B2C or B2B. Um, but B2B is a little bit harder, and you might have to be a little scrappy. But hopefully these suggestions and shortcuts help you, because this can be the most lengthy part of this whole process, is finding users and setting up user interviews with them. So user research in general will be the bulk of your time, whether you're handling it by yourself um, or you have a dedicated UX researcher that you're tag teaming with, or if it's a collaborative effort in the company. And so what's interesting is, let me pull something up real quick. There was a debate going on with a gentleman who just started in product, and you see where I keep all my files. And so this debate with the gentleman was about whether or not user research was his job, right? And, you know, if you're familiar with Marty Kagan, he wrote a book called Inspired. It's a really good book. But there's some things that I disagree with, right? So in one of his blog posts, he wrote, well, what about wireframing, prototyping, and user research? They're all important, but they're the responsibility of the product designer and not you. And this gentleman was kind of espousing the same thought. So I was really curious about this, and so I ran a poll in one of the Facebook groups. So again, I use it for user research too. Um, let's go here, because I was just really curious, right? Like, well, you'll see what I asked. As a PM in your own company, who's responsible for user research? Well, the majority of votes said, as the PM, I primarily do the user research, right? The next largest group said it's a collaborative effort. Next group said we have a dedicated UX researcher, but only 2 people said the designer actually does the user research. So even though Marty's opinion is that it belongs to the user or the UI designer or the UX designer, in practice, it's usually either the PM that does it, or it's a collaborative effort with the PM and the designer, or PM in marketing, or whoever owns it. But as a PM, you will be part of this process to do user research. So this is a very valuable skill to hone, and a very valuable part of this process, because regardless of where you go, unless you're in like maybe one of the big companies like Google or Amazon that have dedicated teams for this, in most cases, you're going to be part of the user research process to some extent, if not owning it holistically. So with that said, this is very important. So how do you find users if you're not a PM of a company who has direct access to users? Well, I'm about to share with you. So personal connections, right? Do you know people who use the software or the product for this project, right? So whether it's a banking app or a language learning app or a CRM tool, right? Whatever you're working on for this project, do you know people who use that tool, or even a competitive tool, right? That gets a little bit into market research, but if you know someone who uses or has used the product that you're working on, that's a great place to start. The other one's LinkedIn, right? Not every industry is LinkedIn like super populated with people on, um, but there could be personal connections that who either you know use this type of software or product. You could connect with people in certain industries that this product usually serves, right? So if it's a physical or software product in a healthcare setting, right, you might connect with nurses or what have you to try to figure out if they use this product and talk to them. Okay, that's a little bit roundabout. To get a little more specific in finding people who are actually users of the product, most of these social media platforms have groups, right? So going to LinkedIn, let's say you want to talk HR software. Well, here's a group right here: human resources, recruiting for startups. So you can get even as specific as, hey, I want to look into HR software specifically for startups, or the product that I'm working on is HR software for startups. Well, there's a group for that with 315,000 members, right? So you could put a little note in here asking, hey, who uses this software? Would love to chat with you and get some feedback. Something as simple as that. You'll get a handful of people responding. Facebook groups are another one. Let's say you want to take on Spotify as your project, right? Artist followers, premium accounts. There you go, 61,000 members. If you want to see what drives people to go to premium, or what's keeping people from going to premium, or how do premium users use the app, whatever your project is, there's probably a group for that, is my point. And lastly, there's a lot of products that have communities or forums where people will come in here and put in things that are problems, or even suggestions that the company should do certain things. And this isn't as good because you don't have, this isn't probably the right place to say, hey, let's jump on a phone call, right? Because they're looking to get a hold of the QuickBooks reps. But if you're just looking for general ideas of what potential problems are in the product, maybe you're having trouble getting the actual one-to-one user interviews and you're just looking for problems you could potentially solve, community groups are a good place to understand problems. Even the company's Twitter pages, or social media pages in general, people will tweet at them or post on their Facebook pages of problems they're having. So I really encourage you to go into like Facebook groups, LinkedIn groups, or just reach out to your network and try to figure out if you can find users of the product that you're taking on for this project, so you can speak to them one-to-one, because there's nothing as beneficial as doing that. But worst case scenario, get online, look for what the users of these products are saying, where the problems are, and then use that as a starting point for what you're going to try to solve in this project. So with that, that's how I find users. I post in Facebook groups all the time. I did it for this product, for Path to Product, by talking to product managers and product leaders and getting insights and information from them as to what product leaders expect aspiring PMs to know, what skills they need to have coming in. And so I eat my own dog food, right? I use the same tools I'm suggesting to you to do research for this product, and in my primary job as well. So with that said, let's move on to the next video, where we'll show you how, now that you found users, how do you actually prepare for the interview and talking with them, so you can make sure you get great insights in that conversation.